The rain fell hard on the space station's lower levels, where artificial weather systems mimicked Earth's storms. Kreeth huddled against a metal wall, his golden scales dulled by months of grime. Once, those scales had gleamed like polished coins in the throne rooms of Draconis Prime. Now they barely caught the flickering neon lights from the cheap food vendors lining the corridor. His stomach growled, a sound that would have terrified armies on his home world. Here, it just made passing humans quicken their steps. They saw him as another alien vagrant, another casualty of the galactic economic collapse that followed the Void Wars. They didn't know he had once commanded fleets, that his fire breath had melted enemy battleships. None of that mattered now. The Dragon Empire had fallen. His people were scattered across 100 worlds, most working as laborers or security guards, trading their ancient pride for survival. Kreeth had refused such work. A dragon prince did not bow, did not serve, so he starved instead. The smell hit him first. Sweet berries, mixed with buttery crust, steam rising from a fresh pie. A human family walked past, the smallest child carrying a box from Maria's authentic Earth bakery. The child, no more than 6 years old, stared at Kreeth with wide eyes. "Mommy, is that a real dragon?" The mother pulled her child closer. "Don't stare, honey. Come on." But the smell lingered. Kreeth's enhanced senses could identify every ingredient. Real fruit, not synthetic. Real butter, imported from Earth at astronomical cost. His mouth watered, and before he could stop himself, he raised one clawed hand. "Please," he said, his deep voice cracking. "If you have any left over." The mother walked faster. Others pretended not to hear. Kreeth lowered his hand, shame burning hotter than any flame he could breathe. A dragon prince, begging for scraps. His ancestors would have torn out his hearts. More humans passed. Station workers ending their shifts. Merchants closing shops. None looked at him. To them, he was invisible. Just another piece of station debris to step around. The rain kept falling, programmed to last another hour. Kreeth pulled his torn wings tighter around himself. Then he smelled it again. Pie. Different this time. Apple and cinnamon. His head snapped up to see an old human man standing before him, holding a white box. The man wore simple clothes. Nothing fancy. Gray hair, lined face, slight stoop to his shoulders, but his eyes, Kreeth had lived for 300 years. He had looked into the eyes of kings and conquerors, heroes and villains. This human's eyes held something different. They were calm, steady, like deep water. Eyes that had seen too much but hadn't turned hard. "Hungry?" the man asked simply. Kreeth nodded, not trusting his voice. The man sat down on the wet ground beside him, ignoring how the rain soaked through his pants. He opened the box, revealing a golden pie with steam curling from fresh knife cuts. "Still warm," the man said. "My wife makes the best apple pie on the station. Been telling her that for 40 years. He pulled out a plastic fork, handed it to Kreeth. "Go on. Eat." Kreeth took the fork with trembling claws. The first bite nearly made him weep. Sweet apples, flaky crust, hints of nutmeg and vanilla. It was the best thing he had tasted in months. He tried to eat slowly, to savor it, but hunger won. Within minutes, half the pie was gone. "Thank you," Kreeth managed between bites. I can't pay you." The man shrugged. "Didn't ask you to." He pulled out a thermos, poured hot coffee into the cap. "Name's Tom. Tom Mitchell. Kreeth of the Sunfire bloodline," Kreeth replied automatically, then felt foolish. Bloodlines meant nothing here. Sunfire, huh? Sounds impressive. Tom sipped his coffee, casual as if he shared meals with homeless dragons every day. "You... military?" Kreeth paused mid-bite. "Once. Fleet commander. 3rd Talon Division. We fought in the Void Wars. Which side? Does it matter? We all lost." Tom nodded slowly. True enough. He was quiet for a moment, watching the fake rain fall. I fought too. Different war, though. Back when humans were still figuring out we weren't alone in the universe. The first contact wars, Kreeth said. Every species knew about humanity's violent introduction to galactic society. You must have been very young. 22 when I enlisted. 50 years ago now. Tom's voice stayed level, matter of fact. Spent 3 years fighting the Zalathi, then 2 more fighting the Korvan hierarchy. Then the peace treaties got signed. And we all pretended we hadn't been trying to wipe each other out. Kreeth studied the human more carefully. 50 years of post-war life would age anyone. But now, he could see the subtle signs. The way Tom sat, back straight despite his age, how his eyes constantly tracked movement in peripheral vision, the small scars on his hands. This wasn't just a veteran. This was something more. You know, Tom continued, I used to hate aliens. All of them. Spent years carrying that weight. Then I met my wife. She was a nurse. Treating Zalathi refugees. Made me realize something. What? That everybody's just trying to get by. Human, dragon, Zalathi, whatever. We're all just trying to make it through another day. Tom poured more coffee. The universe doesn't care about our pride or our bloodlines, or who won which war. In the end, we're all the same. Hungry, tired, far from home. Kreeth felt his throat tighten. He had spent months clinging to his pride, the last thing he had left. But this human understood. Somehow, this simple man understood. I was a prince, Kreeth said quietly, third in line for the dragon throne. I had wealth beyond imagining. Fleets at my command. Entire worlds that paid tribute. He looked at the nearly empty pie box. Now I beg for food. Now you survive, Tom corrected. Nothing shameful in that. I've been hungry too. Been cold. Been scared. Been lost. The shame isn't in falling down. It's in not getting back up. The rain was starting to slow. Soon the station's artificial sun would emerge, and the lower levels would fill with workers and shoppers. Kreeth would have to move, find another spot where security wouldn't hassle him. Thank you for the pie, he said. And the company. Tom stood, his knees popping. You going to be here tomorrow? Kreeth shrugged. Unless security moves me along, then I'll see you tomorrow. Same time. Wife always makes extra pie anyway. He started to walk away, then paused. One more thing. Kreeth, that pride of yours? It's not gone. Just buried under all the survival. When you're ready, you'll find it again. The human walked away, disappearing into the crowd beginning to form. Kreeth sat alone again. But something had changed. The pie box was empty, but his stomach was full. More importantly, someone had seen him. Not a dragon prince or a fallen commander, or an alien vagrant. Just him. He pulled himself to his feet, joints protesting. His reflection caught in a shop window. Still dirty. Still worn. But Tom was right. He was surviving, for the first time in months. That felt like something to be proud of. True to his word, Tom returned the next day. And the day after. Each time with pie, sometimes apple, sometimes cherry. Once a strange earth dessert called key lime that made Kreeth's scales tingle. They would sit together in the artificial rain, sharing food and stories. Kreeth learned that Tom had 3 children, all grown now, 2 doctors and an engineer. His wife Sarah ran a charity clinic in the upper levels. Tom himself worked maintenance, fixing the station's endless mechanical problems. A simple life, he said, a good life. On the 7th day, Tom brought someone with him, a Zalathi female, her blue skin marked with ceremonial scars. She carried a medical bag and looked at Kreeth with professional concern. This is Dr. Vera, Tom said. She works with my wife. Thought maybe she could check you over. Kreeth tensed. I don't need. Your scales are flaking, Vera interrupted, her 4 eyes studying him. Malnutrition. And that cough suggests respiratory infection. Probably from sleeping in damp conditions. When did you last see a doctor? Dragons don't get sick, Kreeth said stiffly. Dragons get sick same as anyone else when they're not eating properly or getting enough rest. Vera shot back. She pulled out a scanner. Now hold still. This won't hurt. Tom sat quietly while Vera worked, running scans and asking questions. Kreeth answered reluctantly at first, then more openly. It had been so long since anyone had shown genuine concern for his health. You need protein supplements, Vera concluded. And antibiotics for that lung infection. Also proper shelter. The lower levels are too damp for reptilian species. I can't afford. The clinic provides free care, Tom said. No questions asked, no payment required. Sarah's rule. Kreeth looked between them, confused. Why? Why help me? Vera and Tom exchanged glances. The Zalathi spoke first. Tom saved my life. During the war, my colony ship was shot down over Kepler 442. Tom's unit found the crash site. His commanders ordered them to leave no survivors. Kreeth's eyes widened. He knew about Kepler 442. It had been one of the war's darkest chapters. Tom refused. Vera continued. He and 12 other humans protected the survivors. Fed us. Treated our wounds. Kept us hidden for 3 weeks until a ceasefire was called. His own people court-martialed him for it. You were court-martialed? Kreeth stared at Tom. For showing mercy? Tom shrugged. Different times. Fear makes people do stupid things. They reversed the decision later. Even gave me a medal. Didn't want it. Medals don't fix what happened. 13 humans stood against their own military, Vera said softly. For aliens they'd been taught to hate. Tom organized the whole thing. He could have been executed. Anyone would have done the same, Tom said uncomfortably. No, Kreeth said quietly. They wouldn't have. He thought of his own time as a commander. The orders he had followed without question. Most follow orders. It's easier, safer, maybe. But I had to live with myself after. Tom stood. Come on. Let's get you to the clinic. Sarah will want to meet you. The clinic sat on level 47, far from the lower-level squalor. Clean white walls. Soft lighting. The hum of medical equipment. Several species waited in the reception area. Kreeth felt acutely aware of his dirty scales and torn clothing. Tom Mitchell, you old fool, a woman's voice called out. What have you dragged in now? Sarah Mitchell was small, even for a human. Gray hair pulled back in a practical bun, laugh lines around green eyes. She wore a doctor's coat over simple clothes, and her hands showed the calluses of real work. She looked Kreeth up and down with the same professional assessment Vera had shown. Dragon, male, approximately 300 years old, suffering from malnutrition and respiratory infection, she rattled off. Also pride damage. But we can't fix that with medicine. Vera, get him into exam room 3. Full workup. I don't want to be trouble, Kreeth started. Too late, Sarah said briskly. Tom's already adopted you. Might as well accept it. He collects strays. Been doing it for 50 years. I don't collect, Tom began. 6 Corvan refugees in our spare room after the peace treaty. 14 Zalathi orphans you personally sponsored for citizenship. That Altarian family living in our basement for 8 months. Should I continue? Tom mumbled something about temporary arrangements. Sarah kissed his cheek. It's why I love you. You impossible man. Now get out of my clinic. Go fix something. Kreeth will be fine. The next hours passed in a blur. Doctors and nurses, all volunteers, treated Kreeth with matter-of-fact kindness. They cleaned his scales, treated his infection, provided supplements to restore his health. No one asked for payment or documentation. How can they afford this? Kreeth asked Vera as she administered an injection. They can't, Vera said simply. Tom and Sarah spend most of their income keeping this place running. Other humans donate too. Some aliens. It's never enough. But they keep going. But why? Vera's 4 eyes focused on him. Because Tom Mitchell believes everyone deserves help. And he has a way of making others believe it too. She paused. Do you know what the other humans call him? The ones who served with him? Creeth shook his head. The conscience. Because when everyone else forgot their humanity, Tom remembered. When orders said kill, he said no. When fear said hate, he chose compassion. Vera sealed the injection site. 13 humans stood with him at Kepler 442. By the end of the war, his ideas had spread through entire divisions. Soldiers on both sides were secretly helping enemy wounded, sharing supplies, protecting civilians. One man caused all that? One man started it, others chose to follow. Vera packed her equipment. Tom won't tell you this. He thinks he just did what anyone should do. But we know better. The ones who lived because of him, we know. When Creeth emerged from the clinic, it was station evening. Tom waited outside, reading from a battered tablet. Feeling better? Tom asked. Much. Creeth hesitated. Your wife said, You've adopted me. Sarah exaggerates. I just thought you might want a job. A job? Station maintenance is hiring. Nothing glamorous. Fixing pipes, replacing panels, cleaning air filters. But it's honest work, steady pay. Enough for a small apartment. Tom studied him. Unless dragon princes don't do manual labor. Creeth thought of his ancestors, their pride, their refusal to bow. Then he thought of Tom Mitchell, human war hero, sitting in the rain to share pie with a homeless dragon. I think, Creeth said slowly, that I need to learn a different kind of pride. Tom smiled. It transformed his weathered face, made him look decades younger. Good. We start tomorrow. 5 a.m. Sharp. Maintenance crew meets at Dock 7. I'll be there. They walked together through the station corridors. Other beings hurried past, all focused on their own lives and problems. But Creeth no longer felt invisible. Someone had seen him. More than that, someone had deemed him worth saving. Tom, he said suddenly, at Kepler 442. Were you afraid? Terrified. Tom answered without hesitation. Thought about my family. What would happen to them if I was executed? Almost walked away a dozen times. But you didn't. No, couldn't. Saw those Zealothy kids in the wreckage, crying for their parents. Saw Vera, trying to shield them with her own body. Realized something in that moment. What? Tom was quiet for a long time. That being human isn't about our species. It's about choosing to care when it would be easier not to. Dragons have a word for it, don't they? In your old language? Creeth's breath caught. Thurvok. It means the fire that warms rather than burns, the strength that protects rather than conquers. Thurvak. Tom repeated, mangling the pronunciation. I like that. Maybe that's what we're all trying to find. Human, dragon, whatever. The fire that warms. They reached the lift to the upper levels. Tomorrow, Creeth would start his new job. He would work with his claws, fix broken things, earn his keep. It wasn't the life he had imagined as a prince. It was better. Thank you, he said as the lift doors opened. For everything. Tom waved it off. Thanks, Sarah. And Vera. And the clinic staff. I just brought pie. But they both knew it was more than that. Tom Mitchell had brought something far more valuable. He had brought hope, and in a universe still healing from war, hope was the rarest treasure of all. 6 months passed. Creeth's scales regained their golden shine. His apartment was small but clean, with a window overlooking the station's central plaza. He had even saved enough to buy furniture, simple human designs that accommodated his tail and wings. The maintenance job was hard work, but satisfying. Broken things became whole under his claws. Tom worked alongside him most days. The human never complained about the heavy lifting or dirty jobs. He just worked, steady, and reliable, teaching Kreeth the intricacies of station systems. During breaks, they shared lunch and stories. Kreeth learned about Earth, about human stubbornness and human kindness. Tom learned about dragon culture, about honor and tradition, and the weight of ancient expectations. "You miss it," Tom observed one day as they repaired a coolant leak. "Your old life." "Sometimes," Kreeth admitted. "The power, the respect, knowing my place in the universe." He tightened a valve with careful precision. "But I wouldn't go back." Quote, "No? No." That Kreeth was proud but empty. This Kreeth. He paused, searching for words. This Kreeth knows the value of a day's work, of earned respect, of friendship freely given. Tom smiled. "Sarah would say you're becoming properly human. Perhaps humans are becoming properly dragon." They both laughed, the sound echoing through the maintenance tunnel. It was good to laugh. Kreeth had almost forgotten how. The emergency alarm shattered their peace. Red lights flashed through the station. The general alert siren meant everyone to emergency stations. But this pattern, 3 long blasts followed by 2 short, meant something worse. "Hull breach," Tom said, already moving. "Major one." They ran toward the source of the alarm. Level 12. The refugee sector. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species lived there, crammed into converted cargo bays. The cheapest housing on the station, barely up to safety codes. The scene was chaos. A micrometeorite had punched through the hull, a hole the size of a ground car. Emergency force fields held the vacuum at bay. But they were failing. Sparks showered from overloaded projectors. Security officers tried to evacuate civilians, but panic made crowds dangerous. "Force fields got maybe 10 minutes, a security chief shouted. "We need everyone out." But Kreeth could see the problem. A section of ceiling had collapsed, blocking the main exit. The alternate route was too small for some species. A family of Thraxians, with their wide carapaces, couldn't fit through. Neither could the elderly Boskin, in a mobility chair. They were trapped between the failing force field and the blocked exit. "We need cutting tools," the security chief said. 20 minutes to clear that debris." "We don't have 20 minutes," Tom said quietly. He was studying the breach, the force field projectors, the trapped civilians. Kreeth recognized his expression. It was the same look he'd had when talking about Kepler 442. "Tom," Kreeth said, "what are you thinking? Someone needs to go outside, weld a patch over the breach. Give the force field time to stabilize." The security chief stared at him. "That's suicide. You'd have to work in hard vacuum. No safety line, no backup. One slip, and you're gone." "I've done EVA work before," Tom said. 50 years ago. You're 72 years old." Tom was already moving toward an emergency suit locker. "Still remember how it's done." Kreeth grabbed his arm. "No. I'll go. Dragon scales can handle vacuum for short periods. I'm stronger, younger, and you don't know how to weld in zero gravity," Tom interrupted gently. "I do." He pulled on the EVA suit with practiced efficiency. "Besides, someone needs to keep the crowd calm. Dragon royalty's good at that. Right?" Before Kreeth could argue further, Tom had the helmet on. He grabbed an emergency patch kit and plasma welder. Through the helmet's visor, his eyes were calm, the same calm they'd had that first day, sharing pie in the rain. "Tom Mitchell, don't you dare." Sarah's voice crackled over the emergency comm. She must have heard the alert at the clinic. "Love you too, dear," Tom said. He cycled through the emergency airlock. Kreeth watched through a viewport as Tom emerged into space. The human looked small against the infinite black, tethered by only magnetic boots to the station's hull. He moved carefully but confidently toward the breach. Inside, the force field flickered dangerously. 5 minutes until force field collapse, someone announced. Kreeth turned to the trapped civilians. They needed hope, leadership. Once, he would have roared orders. Now he spoke calmly, the way Tom would. "Everyone stay calm. Help is coming. Thraxians, Form a line. We're going to try something. He studied the debris blocking the exit. Dragon strength alone couldn't move it safely. But if they worked together, you three, he pointed to some Corvan dock workers. Grab those support beams. We're going to lever the big piece up. Thraxians. When I lift, you slide under. Fast but careful. Outside, Tom worked with mechanical precision. The plasma welder flared in the vacuum, sealing edges of the patch to the hull. But Kreeth could see him moving slower. The suit's readout, visible on a security monitor, showed elevated heart rate, dropping oxygen levels. EVA work was hard for young humans. For a 72-year-old, force field at critical, security announced. 3 minutes. Kreeth strained against the debris, scales scraping against metal. The Corvans helped, their 4 arms providing leverage. Inch by inch, they raised the collapsed ceiling section. Go! Kreeth roared. The Thraxians scuttled through, pulling the elderly Boskin with them. Other trapped civilians followed. But the weight was immense. Kreeth's muscles screamed. One of the Corvans lost his grip. The debris started to fall. Kreeth did the only thing he could. He threw himself under it, using his back to hold it up. The weight crushed down on him. He felt ribs crack. But he held. The last civilian scrambled through. Everyone out, security yelled. Force field failing. Strong hands grabbed Kreeth, dragged him clear. The debris crashed down behind them. They ran, stumbled, fell through emergency pressure doors, just as the force field died. The breach was sealed. Tom's patch held, but the airlock remained closed. Where is he? Sarah's voice on the comm. No longer calm. Where's my husband? The security chief checked his monitors. He's still out there. Sitting against the hull next to the patch. Not moving. Get him inside. We can't. Opening the airlock now would compromise the patch. We need to wait for a proper EVA team. That's 20 minutes away. Sarah was screaming now. He doesn't have 20 minutes. Kreeth looked at the monitors. Tom sat peacefully against the station's hull, surrounded by stars. His suit readings showed minimal oxygen, dropping temperature. The old soldier had given everything to save strangers. Again. No, Kreeth said. He moved before anyone could stop him. Dragon scales could handle vacuum for short periods. He had maybe 5 minutes. It would have to be enough. The emergency airlock cycled. Kreeth burst into space, the cold hitting him like a physical blow. No suit. No tether. Just determination. He pushed off from the station, sailing toward Tom's still form. His lungs burned. His eyes began to freeze. But dragons were made for extremes. He reached Tom, grabbed him, kicked back toward the airlock. His vision blurred. His movements grew sluggish, then hands were pulling them inside. The airlock slammed shut. Blessed air rushed in. Kreeth collapsed, gasping, as medics swarmed over Tom. He's not breathing, someone shouted. No pulse. They worked frantically. Chest compressions, oxygen, injections of stimulants. Kreeth watched, helpless, as they fought to save the man who had saved so many. Come on, Tom. Sarah had arrived, still in her clinic coat. She pushed past the medics, took her husband's face in her hands. Don't you dare leave me. Not like this. Not when there's still work to do. Long seconds passed. Then Tom coughed, sputtered. His eyes opened, focused on Sarah's tear-streaked face. Hi, beautiful, he whispered. Sarah hit him. Then hugged him. Then hit him again. You impossible. Stupid. Heroic fool. Runder. Language, Tom mumbled. Dragon present. Everyone turned to look at Kreeth, who was being treated for vacuum exposure and broken ribs. The golden dragon managed a pained smile. Actually, Kreeth said, I think the proper dragon phrase is, you impossible, stupid, heroic fool. The laughter that followed was part relief, part joy, part recognition of what had just happened. A 72-year-old human had risked everything to save aliens. A dragon prince had returned the favor. The war was long over. But its greatest battle had just been won. The battle to see each other as worth saving. Later, in the hospital, Tom and Creeth shared a room. Sarah had insisted, over their protests. She sat between their beds, holding Tom's hand and periodically checking Creeth's bandages. "You know what the funny thing is?" Tom said, voice still rough. 50 years ago, I saved Vera's people because I thought it was the right thing to do. Got called a hero for it. But I never felt like one. And now?" Creeth asked. "Now I think maybe hero is the wrong word. Maybe we're all just people helping people. Human helping Zalathi. Dragon helping human. Everyone helping everyone." He squeezed Sarah's hand. "That's how we win. Not through wars or conquest, but through whatever the dragon word was." "Thurvak," Creeth said. "The fire that warms." "Right. Through Thurvak." Outside their window, the station continued its eternal spin. Different species walked the corridors, lived their lives, worked together to keep their small corner of space functioning. It wasn't perfect. There was still prejudice, still poverty, still those who fell through the cracks. But there were also those who brought pie to the hungry, who opened clinics for those who couldn't pay, who risked everything for strangers. Creeth thought of his old life, the palace halls and golden thrones. That had been one kind of power. But this, lying in a hospital bed with broken ribs because he had saved a friend who had saved him first, this was a different power. Better power. The power to change things one person at a time. "Hey, Creeth," Tom said drowsily. The medications were making him sleepy. "Tomorrow's your day off, right?" "Yes. Want to grab some pie?" "I know a good place." Creeth laughed, even though it hurt his ribs. "You buying?" "Always." Sarah shook her head at both of them. "Impossible fools," she muttered. But she was smiling. Outside, stars wheeled in their courses, indifferent to the small dramas of small lives. But in that hospital room, 3 hearts beat with the knowledge that small lives could achieve great things, not through strength or pride or bloodlines, but through the simple act of seeing each other, helping each other, saving each other. The homeless dragon had found a home. The war hero had fought his greatest battle. And somewhere in the space between them, humanity had showed its truest face. Not the face of a species, but a choice. The choice to care. The choice to help. The choice to warm rather than burn. In the end, that was the most human thing of all. And perhaps, Creeth thought as sleep finally took him, the most dragon thing too.